Welcome back to Founder Mode.
Just about another 20 episodes since our last Best Of, Kevin, and the through line this batch surprised even us.
Yeah, it's not AI changes everything. It's that the boring stuff, trust, services, picking up the phone, showing your work got more important, not less.
The smartest people we talked to this run weren't chasing the shiny new thing. They were doubling down on what already worked and using AI to just do more of it.
And the ones who weren't getting traction, they were usually skipping a step that everyone else considered table stakes.
So if you're a founder who feels like the rules just changed, this episode is a reset.
Here are the moments from the last 20 episodes that stuck with us. Mental health hasn't had a real breakthrough in decades.
Jay went from anesthesiology to building a modern mental health clinic, and he reframes how ketamine actually works.
This isn't a magic pill story, it's a window of opportunity story.
Ketamine obviously is a medicine compared to SSRIs or something that would be traditionally used for mental health care. Those often take 6 weeks or more to work, even if they work at all.
Right.
What is different about ketamine is it's about 70 or 80% effective for people that have first failed all the traditional therapies that are out there.
Wow.
They're already coming in having tried everything that the medical system can throw at them. That's the best care. And ketamine can work in hours to days. I've really seen patients come out of an infusion and feel completely different. And they'll say, I feel like myself again. That was really unexpected. I'm a scientist. I was skeptical going in. I was like, can the numbers really be this good? And they were. And so what we look at ketamine as is really like a window. It's like an open window, and it's a tool. So it can start to make the changes. But I think for the changes to stick and for patients to really get better long-term, you have to look at all the other lifestyle things that are going on. The root cause of what's causing the depression. And that's not always something that's just going to be magically fixed with a medicine. You know, we see ketamine as a way to open that window, and then we can start to work on a lot of the other stuff. So we really built a comprehensive clinic around that. We have therapy, counseling that goes into it. We talk about all the lifestyle things like nutrition, how we eat, how we move, stress management, sleep, those sorts of things.
Most founders think growth fixes the cracks in their business.
Stephanie has scaled multi-location service businesses through hypergrowth, acquisition, and full-on crises.
Her take is one most operators don't want to hear out loud. So when you think about what is an acquirable business, are there certain things you're looking for when you're going on a kind of M&A spree? How do you evaluate the ones that are going to work versus not?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually just got off an acquisition call, and I could tell some of the questions I was asking were a little bold, but you have to ask questions, like ask questions beyond what you see on the financial statements, gross margins by your service and products, employee contribution margins. Like, sure, we pay these in salaries or whatever, but break it down to me. What's base? What's commission? What's your traditional overhead? Are there specific individuals within your organization that are driving the majority of the revenue? So is it really like a people thing, or is it a system thing? Again, is everything documented? Are there any key stakeholders? If somebody leaves, like we're buying this business from you and you get hit by a car tomorrow, is this business still going to be successful? Like, you have to ask those hard questions. Another thing I try to ask too is about failures. Like, if you could go back in time, what would you do differently? Where did you exhaust a lot of money that you wish you would have put somewhere else, and why? And I feel like that kind of cuts through the sales pitch that you typically get during these conversations where they want to wrap a bow on everything, but also show a level of vulnerability in the people you might be working with.
Jason Fried has been profitable every year for 26 years, never took a board seat, and tells most of Silicon Valley they're doing it wrong.
He treats software products like these physical objects you have to want to pick up again the next morning.
This clip flipped how I think about feature roadmaps.
Again, I tend to think of these things as if they were physical objects. If I had a physical object and I had to grip it a lot, I'd probably want some sort of really nice material. Or a little bit of knurling, so I had some grip depending on what it would be, but not too much because then it would poke into your hand. You probably use like a weight bar or something with too much knurling, and it's like it hurts. You got to find the right amount of that. Or if you're going to use leather for a grip, like what kind of leather? You want to think about these touch points, and that's how I tend to think about software. Is like, what would it feel like if it was a physical object? And if I had to hold this thing all day and work with this thing all day, at the end of the day, would I want to put it down because I'm sick of it? Or would I be like, that was a great day's worth of work. I can't wait to pick this thing up again tomorrow. That's the mentality we try to bring to it. It doesn't always map one-to-one from a physical object to a virtual object, but conceptually, I just keep thinking, what if this was real? What if this was real? And that helps because I don't know. I mean, I can't speak, and it's too, you can't say like the industry really because it's too broad, but I just don't think of this stuff as software. It happens to be software because that's the medium of computers. You have to tell these things to do things, and it's software. But I really think of them as objects, our products as objects. And yeah, they're flattened because they're on a flat screen. But I think that does come through in the way that they're built and the way that they work.
Most founders we know got married before they knew anything about merging finances.
Ronki's building Neptune, vertical AI, plus human experts to force the conversation before resentment, fear, or power imbalances calcify.
And she's pointed about why generic AI fails for this.
Yeah, well, it's like you guys said, like everyone's already using it. Regardless of whether someone's coming to Neptune or not, they are almost certainly using Chat or Gemini or Claude to talk about these topics. The interesting twist that we've put on things is that generic, call it like ChatGPT or Google AI or all of that, it's okay talking about these hard topics, right? It's fine, but you guys have used ChatGPT. You've seen it go off the rails and do the like, you're right, like blah, 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 blah. You want to keep all of your money to yourself? I think you're justified, like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Because you can get ChatGPT, you can get, ChatGPT can say anything to make
Very
you happy,
agreeable.
right? So when you're going through our AI chat experience, it's essentially been trained specifically on like how to be essentially just like good emotional counselor, money coach, couples counselor for couples. So you get all of the benefits of AI being able to be smart, being able to personalize its response, but it's specifically trained for this use case. And so that's why like our experience ends up being way better than ChatGPT or Claude.
When the rumor hit that Gen Z was buying old Blackberries off eBay, our guest didn't write a deck or raise a round.
He quietly launched a landing page called bringbackblackberry.com and watched what happened.
The signups answered the question for him.
We did a solo episode on AI brand audits and where AI is actually pulling weight in our day-to-day.
The honest answer, AI is amazing at analysis and terrible at taste.
That distinction has saved us from a lot of bad ideas this year.
With bringing back BlackBerry, I think now it's not the goal, right? We've gone beyond it. But what the notion of bringing back BlackBerry last year did was it kind of allowed us to shake the BlackBerry tree or the BlackBerry bush, so to speak, and see what would fall out of it. And we had hundreds of calls over the last 6 months with people from the industry, people who turned out to be investors and become investors, from fans, from partners, suppliers, et cetera, who want to see this revival happen. And, coming to funding, while the VC approach was not crystal clear, what we found as we showed people our roadmap was that they kind of said, wow, yeah, we don't need to bring back BlackBerry. We love what you're bringing to market. How do I become part of that? So we were able to do our seed round really with fans of Clicks and what we were building, but people who appreciated what they were missing in that world to be involved as part of the story. So that got us through our funding round.
Every AI coding company is racing to generate more code faster.
Dennis argues that they're missing where engineering knowledge actually lives.
It's not in the repo, it's in Slack and Jira.
So you've said that AI dev tools are solving the wrong problem. What are they missing?
I think to date, what we've seen is really a focus on solving problems that are limited to just the scope of the source code that they're looking at, right? And forget about AI dev tools for a second. If you think about hiring someone new on the team and you said to them, look, we need you to build this feature, fix this bug, but you can only look at the source code. All of the information that you need is just like limited to the source code itself. I don't think you're setting them up for success, no matter how talented they are, right? You can't talk to anyone. Don't look at any documentation. Don't look at Slack, nothing. Just go look at the source code and kind of go and do that. I think that's crazy. And I think if you built software in any meaningful capacity, you know that the knowledge sits outside of just strictly the source code. The source code is what you've done, why you've done it, sits in Slack threads and Jira tickets, Notion documents, whatever your stack might be. And so the problem that we're trying to solve is effectively contextualizing or providing context for developers to get their work done. And increasingly, and more so these days, they're tools, right? So these agents lack that context and need it arguably even more than people because they suffer from not clarifying intent or, any number of like deficiencies and somehow in the capacity that these things are built.
We keep hearing AI will automate everything.
Nima, who came from robotics, says that most automation is happening at the wrong layer entirely.
The opportunity isn't faster code. It's the messy glue between systems. You've seen inside a very big organization like that and others. What was the insight that kind of got you from your first exit to now building this new company?
Durable started out of a frustration of us writing a lot of code the hard way at Canvas. And this was code that was really difficult to maintain. And it was plugged into a lot of complicated systems, especially when we deployed these robots in a real warehouse manufacturing facility. You have like VMS systems, ERP systems, and my thesis was like at least that glue code, that business logic layer, could be completely automated, so that the operators that we were deploying to could then just kind of describe how they wanted these robots to behave within that environment, and then something deploy the code to make that happen. At the time, that was extremely difficult and very much a manual consultative process. And it remains to this day for robots. Like if you deploy a robotic system, there's a whole system integrator, kind of cottage industry that comes in and configures it for you. So I was like, at least that should be something that you can conversationally get to a set of requirements. But you need precision. You need the ability to like test it out before you implement it, because you're affecting real change. That was really the insight. I think now we can reach production level quality without developers being in the loop, which is pretty amazing considering like that's just, a couple of years ago, that would have been science fiction.
Hit episode 50, talking about how founders are using AI wrong.
People hire an AI employee and expect day one perfection.
Treat it like an intern instead. Useful, fast, full of potential, but still needing oversight. And the whole thing starts working. The best way that, again, I keep using this as an analogy is like, have you had an intern before? Have you hired a junior assistant before? And you need to keep reframing that and you set the expectations correctly, because I think that's where people get into trouble is they're like, oh, I've hired this new AI employee and I expect it to be perfect, or I expect that it to not make mistakes, or I expect that I've already corrected it once, it won't make that mistake again. And we know that humans do that all the time. You can give the same requirements, please show up for work on time, please do this task. And like that can be a reoccurring kind of wrongness. And I think AI is no different, partly because it is this sort of indeterministic sort of like the environment can be exactly the same. The request can be exactly the same, but it can actually give you different results for both good and bad reasons.
Courtney built Socialfly into one of the most respected social agencies in the country. Then she launched Entreprenista.
When she invests, she's not looking at follower counts.
She's looking at who actually shows up in the comments and whether the founder can take a punch.
So community is such a buzzword right now, and everyone says that they have a community. And right now, what we're realizing is people are confusing a following with community. And they're two very, very different things. Community is really a private place where you're bringing people together so that they can interact with each other. And that's what we've created at Entreprenista. And how we know that it's working is that people are sharing about all the things that they've been able to accomplish through the connections and the visibility that they get through Entreprenista. We hear it every single day, which is really what keeps us going, because it's definitely a tough business. It requires a lot of energy to run a community, and you constantly have to pour into it. But it's so worth it, because every day we see messages all over social media, and even though we even get text messages about how Entreprenista has been life-changing for a lot of women. When I'm deciding to invest, I'm really just looking at the founder and do I feel confident that this person is going to be able to deal with the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and stay committed to what the mission is and make sure that they achieve it and there's a return for all investors.
We've gone all in on AI content for our work this year.
I broke down how we evolved from one big prompt to an orchestrated team of agents, taxonomy, writing, editing, creative, QA, and publishing.
The unlock wasn't a better model. It was thinking about it like staffing a content team.
2 years ago, we were making AI content on behalf of clients very differently, right? It was ChatGPT and Midjourney were the two tools we used, and we would generate articles, and then we would use human editors to review them. We would do the internal linking, follow all the SEO best practices. We would go to Midjourney and kind of create handcraft prompts to make images that looked appropriate for those articles. And that still was a lot of people hours. Fast forward, to today, and I have an agent that's running 24/7 generating content for Winston Francois, for our clients, that can generate dozens of articles every day and publishes them every 30 minutes. In order to set that system up, it's not just one agent that's been given a prompt that goes off. There's the agent that comes up with the taxonomy and the schema that is relevant to all the different topics that we need to discuss that are important for keyword search and zero-click search on these AI kind of chatbots. There's the writer agent that goes and generates the content. There's the reviewer editor agent that reviews that content from the writer and says, hey, that wasn't very good. Let's go back and revise it. There's the creative agent that's going and making an image that pairs nicely with that content. And then there's the final like QA agent that makes sure, hey, does this article have an image? Is it within the word count that we need to hit? Touch the topic and match the taxonomy and the schema. And then that kind of final publisher agent pushes it live and then throws an error and says, hey, this one didn't go live for this reason. And so like now we've got a team of 6 or 7 virtual AI agents that are doing that work. Shane is building Sylvia, an AI financial copilot, and it draws a sharp line between copilot and autopilot.
That line is trust, and trust is being built by showing your work.
This is a lesson every AI founder should write on the wall. You've described AI as this kind of copilot, not an autopilot. What does that distinction mean in practice in the way you've built Sylvia?
Yeah, I mean, we think about this a lot internally. How much do you want to go down the autopilot route, right? Versus keeping the human in the loop. I think there's 3 aspects of this, and it all comes down to trust, transparency, like credibility and all that stuff, right? So how much trust can you show the user? And that's all going to be about accuracy, being transparent. So again, it comes back to the reasoning of when you're showing a user recommendation, can you show the traces of the AI, right? Of like how it even came about that decision, and also referencing back to sources, right? So if there are values that you are referencing to, or if there's tax codes that you're mentioning in the responses, can you link out to the sources so the user knows that this is much more accurate than something else? And I think all that plays a factor in how much of this is copilot versus autopilot. Obviously, the execution factor of this, you can either have guardrails, right? So if someone sets up an agent that says, buy and sell on, market open and close or whatever it is, or has certain thresholds, those sorts of things are fine. But if you are trying to make the agent do like irreversible big decisions, then obviously there's going to be some sort of factor of trust and credibility that needs to be involved there, right? And so the way we think of it is small, simple, reversible decisions can be fully on autopilot.
Every vendor on the planet is suddenly an AI company.
Your phone company, your CRM, your internet provider, all of them are suddenly pitching AI agents.
CIOs aren't overwhelmed by the tech. They're overwhelmed by the noise. The worry that a lot of them have, and I think where they're stuck, is that, you talk to these CIOs and COOs and CEOs to some extent, they're getting overwhelmed and just diluted with people telling them they're going to add AI. And it's not just all the new vendors that are coming into the space. It's all the current vendors that are like, oh, I'm your phone company. I'm going to add AI agents to my phone. Oh, I'm your internet provider. I'm going to add AI agents. They're just, everybody's selling an AI agent for something. And I think that is deeply, deeply confusing for people that are like not living and breathing this every day. They're like, who do I trust? And so part of it's like a trust thing. How do you sort of like crack through that and then show them something that gets their confidence where like, hey, this is going to work for me. I'm going to get out of this kind of like, weird question stance, but also like, can I get a pilot that actually works that I can deploy and run it?
There's a famous book that says you get 90 days as a new leader. Kevin, you disagree.
By week 3, if you haven't made a single change, your team has already written you off.
Your first move at one of your companies was bringing back the chocolate milk that the office had been missing for a year. One small change, massive signal.
It's funny. You always hear like these like first 90 days, first 100-day things. And I mean, to me, you've got to kind of get the first sprint of that done like the first week, right? Like, because the other thing, especially if you're coming into like a leadership position or something where you've been like, oh, you're brought in and a lot of people report to you or they're expecting a lot out of you. People are making judgments on you in the first 10 minutes, right? Of seeing that note, reading it, hearing about it, and then the rumor mill starts. And then from the moment you have that first meeting, everybody's checking, hey, what went on? What did they learn? And so you don't have a lot of time to sort of collect raw-ish information before people start to form their own opinions. And so you want to be able to say, like, at the end of your first week, hey, I talked to a pretty wide swath of people already, and here's my initial thoughts. And then the second week, you're like, hey, you're kind of clarifying that and moving through it. And then, so within the first month, you're like, week 3, you should be able to start making changes. And people are like, hey, they all complained that there was no more chocolate milk and it was only like skim or no fat. And they're like,
it was the smart waters at Google, but yeah.
He brought chocolate milk back.
Yeah.
And
You're the guy that brought chocolate milk back?
there was a company where that was one of the moves.
Because
And it was a
every
simple
engineer
thing.
was like, I missed that chocolate milk. We had that control.
It was a team. It was a remote office, and that office had changed vendors at some point in the last year. And then that vendor moved them from like, no fat milk to skim milk and chocolate milk just to like no fat and skim. And they're like, the chocolate milk has never been come back. Every founder asks the same question. How do I get my first 10 customers?
Jose didn't run ads. He didn't hire a growth team. He picked up the phone and called his Carnegie Mellon alumni network.
14 years later, 1 out of every 11 leads becomes a paying customer.
Speaking of customer acquisition, just for a minute, because you kind of triggered something for me. How did you get those first 10 customers? You're talking about this awareness problem being fundamental to the business, that people aren't even aware that they can do this. Like, what was the thing you did to get those first 10?
A lot of it was cold calling and reaching out to my personal network. I mean, look, I went to Carnegie Mellon for grad school, and I reached out to people at CMU and said, hey, by the way, this is what we're doing. Who do I need to talk to?
Yeah.
And Carnegie Mellon was probably our number 3 customer, and then, so a lot of it was, I'm going to call it grassroots, kind of word of mouth, just reaching out and contacting different people. And then over time, we built a team, we built a sales team, we built marketing. I can tell you today that I'll give you a stat on 11 leads that we get, we're going to get a refunds customer. So we are continuously working on refining our messaging and trying to get better conversion. And so we manage the business very, very aligned to what a B2B SaaS business and those metrics are.
Brent has been inside Reddit's marketing community for almost 2 decades.
And he says the next 12 months are the land grab nobody's playing.
One brand he's worked with launched 2 months ago and is already on the front page of ChatGPT, every LLM, and Reddit answers, and they're selling $5,000 to $10,000 items every single week.
That's the beautiful thing for the companies that are getting in right now, because let me tell you, it is the next 12 months is the land grab. It's being able to say, you know what? Short domains, .coms, and links 20 years ago, and you could just flash back. What would you do today if you had knowledge of where that was all going to go back then? Like, we have a crystal ball that shows us exactly where things are going right now. Maybe not the exact route, but we definitely know where they're going, and we definitely know what's going to influence it. And people are like, but not yet. Let me wait until I actually lose the opportunity to get in early and then come back. But for the people who are getting in,
they're crushing. Yeah.
Dude, so we can get to the front page, like a brand right now, luxury brand, 2 months in, has no information, brand new. We are on the front of every single thing. ChatGPT, LLM, all the AIs, Reddit answers, they're seeing sales, and they sell things at 10 grand, like 5 to 10 grand per sale. And they're getting sales through Reddit every single week. They're seeing it. It's growing because people just are asleep on it right now. And it's okay. Keep sleeping, because it makes it so much easier for the rest of us.
Eric wrote The Lean Startup. Now he's written Incorruptible, and it's about something he spent his career fighting without being able to name.
Years of building world-class management systems, then watching them get unwound in a single board meeting.
He finally has a name for the force everyone obeys, but no one controls.
I feel like my whole life, my whole career, I've done battle with these forces without knowing what they were. And it's like the scene in the movie where the hero's blindfolded and is getting punched from all sides. And you're like, I can't see what's happening. I help so many companies build a superior management system only to see it get totally unwound by a betrayal in the boardroom. Like, I built systems that, like, we've trained hundreds of thousands of employees. It takes years of work. It takes one day for a board to be like, never mind, let's nuke this thing from orbit. And the money that's available for this kind of corruption, like the billions upon billions of we're spending on stock buybacks when you could be spending it on innovation. It's just like you have, like, these companies that are so starved for resources are able to waste infinite money on this nonsense. It's just you're like, why is this happening? I can't understand it. And I call it the force that everyone obeys, but no one controls.
Software founders treat services revenue like a contagious disease.
Scott spent 17 years building BP3 with the opposite view.
If your product is actually transformative, services isn't a negative signal. It's a positive one. You've built these service-heavy businesses, and the world is kind of obsessed with the shiny object that is product, right?
Right.
Why do you think people underestimate services?
History rhymes, right? It doesn't quite repeat, but it rhymes. And, there's only so many Microsofts or Apples where, like, the product, you sell the product and you don't need a consultant, right? But also people forget that And then there's like products that need, like, actually services is not a negative indicator for some products. For some products, the services work is a positive indicator. It's a, evangelist element. It's an element of building the business. If Instacart, right, had only been the cart and, okay, HEB, find your own shoppers, and every grocery store, hope you can figure out how to serve these orders we're sending you. Like, oh man, like, I don't know that would have worked, right? Like, sometimes you got to be in the game with them, put some skin in the game and people in the field. And I think anything that's business transformative, you want to be there, right? So business process we felt was transformative and we needed to be there. And the more services a software company in that space was doing, probably the more successful their customers were, and then their product, right? And I think that's true with AI as well. I remember a couple of years ago, people would kind of make fun of Palantir as being really a services company. Yeah, but I mean, kind of worked for them, right?
All right, 20 more conversations, Kevin, one pattern.
The founders who broke through in this batch didn't follow the obvious play.
They went against the grain on hiring, on tooling, on services, on AI. They picked up the phone when everyone else was hiding behind a deck.
They showed their work when everyone else was hiding their reasoning.
If you've been watching this year and feeling like the playbook is upside down, it is. But the moves that win are simpler than you think.
Go listen to the full conversation behind these clips. Each one is a different angle on the same job, making the right call when it's messy.
And if founder mode has been useful to you, do us a favor. Subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who's building.
That's a wrap. AI didn't replace the work. It just made it harder for the people doing it to hide behind.